This is Series T, where we find the greatest and best entrepreneurs and investors, and we force them to have tea with us live on air. I'm Imad Akun, founder and CEO of Mercury. Today, we have James Beshara, the CEO and co-founder of Tilt. They were sold to Airbnb in 2017. He's invested in 55 companies. He's written a book, Beyond Coffee, that talks about his passion with coffee and other nootropics. And he's just a super smart entrepreneur and investor, so we're very excited to have him here.
Excited to be here.
All right, let's talk about some of your investing. So, I mean, you've done 55 investments. I guess, what was the first one? How did you get into investing and think this is fun?
So we were in Y Combinator. We had just gotten out, and another company in our batch called Zen Payroll.
Yeah.
Josh Reeves came up to me and said, "Hey, James, I know we're in the batch together and you're building your own startup with Tilt, but would you be interested in investing in what we're building?" And that ended up becoming Gusto.
Yeah.
And so I ended up looking at my bank account. I saw that I didn't have much, but I had about 25 grand in savings, and I put 20K into Gusto. And that was my first investment there.
So you're running your startup. You decide to wipe out your savings account on Zen Payroll Gusto investment?
I was inspired. I also knew that I was going to learn just what investing was like no matter what. And honestly, it sounds like the most ridiculous lack of diversification to be invested in two different startups. But to me, at 26, I just felt like I needed to diversify from my one startup. Along with a few other investments, gave me the confidence to say, okay, I'm decent at this. I can do it.
All right. So give me what you think could be an easy $1 billion idea. If someone did this, the unicorn startup in 5 years.
This is all I think about. So yeah, it would be.
Oh, it's Lev.
What?
Lev's a software engineer at Mercury, I guess. Lev, you're bringing us some tea?
Yeah.
All right.
Today I have the Midnight White for you to try.
Oh, that's exciting. Where's the Midnight White from, Lev? Give me the whole story.
It's from the Mercury tea room.
All right. I trust
Thanks,
it
Lev.
now. I didn't trust it before.
Did you have some before you gave us this?
It's delicious.
It's delicious? Okay. Thanks, Lev.
I was wondering when the tea was gonna.
It's a tea room. We were not going to do tea. Would you like some tea?
I would.
Actually, you were saying you own or part own a Japanese tea farm? What's the story?
Super small co-owner of a Japanese matcha farm in Uji 7 years ago. I had a heart condition. My doctor said you can only drink 80 milligrams of caffeine a day.
Yeah.
So then I had to switch over to tea, and that's what he recommended. Have you ever tried green tea, specifically matcha? Because it'll extend your absorption of caffeine over time. And I like coffee here and there, but I love tea.
So the funny thing is, because Mercury's known for tea. Often when people visit Mercury, they bring us tea. So
That's
we
awesome.
have drawers, and you should come to Mercury, the office.
Where did it come from? Where did the tea obsession come from y'all's angle?
First designer, she was very into tea, so she was making tea for everyone in the office. And then when we were coming up with this idea for the Mercury kind of premium tier, we didn't want to call it premium or exclusive or blue or black or whatever. So Jason, my co-founder, he was like, "Oh, what if we call it tea room?" So we ran with it, and yeah.
Well, I love it.
We touched on this earlier. You've invested in D2c Startups, and actually, I know a bunch of angel investors. It's relatively rare that they focus on D2c.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a few questions I had on that. I actually can't invest in D2c because I look at a D2c company, I'm like, it's rare that they have IP or patents.
Right.
There's no software advantage. They're dealing with real atoms, which are scary as a software person.
Right.
So how did you get into that category? And how do you judge a startup like that?
Building out Tilt, we had a really powerful API for crowdfunding campaigns. So Cruise, Away, Soylent, Era, a bunch of really amazing companies that went on to be billion-dollar companies used our crowdfunding API, and I got to see up close from the front row how quickly a brand could be built. And I think when I look at the investing landscape, there's really three things that tectonically shift a space, and it's either government regulation changing, technological, so it's government, technological, or consumer shifts. Okay. One of those three things happening will create just a whole new set of opportunities. You see kind of government with something like cannabis or Caliva. By the way, I'm an investor in Caliva. Great company. Or you go from government to technological, and you have the smartphone as a technological shift or consumer shift. What I felt like was happening in 2013, 2014 was consumers were willing to buy a brand new brand, product, story within like 3 minutes of seeing a video on a crowdfunding campaign. 20 years ago, if you were to launch like a drink brand or an ice cream brand or a a luggage brand, you would need, Red Bull needed a $250 million ad budget for TV commercials. And you fast forward to today, and instead of people wondering, why haven't I heard this before, I'm not really, I'm just going to go with this regular company that everyone trusts like Tumi. Instead, I think the consumer behavior is, what's new and how do I get my hands on it?
I think this was back in Airbnb. You were saying that you invested in 5 D2c companies then, and like 2 of them were unicorns already. What are your like top ones that you've done?
Your one that started D2C and became CPG, so they abandoned D2C completely, was Halo Top, which is an ice cream company, and one of the top number 1 selling ice cream in the country for pints. So it's gone from nothing, and that's part of that consumer behavior. Went from nothing to beating Baskin Robbins and Ben & Jerry's in just like 5 years. So that was illuminating to see it actually take place. These brands grow really quickly. I've loved continually investing. ThirdLove is a women's bra-wear company. Okay. But I'll say 5 things that are really important for this investment thesis, or my investment approach for this space is. And by the way, am I supposed to look? Should I look at one of these cameras? Should I look right at this camera?
No, this one is your one.
Okay, there we go. Do I look at you for these answers?
I'm just going with the flow, so.
So when I'm talking to you, I'll look at you, but when I'm talking to founders, I'm going to look. No, I'm just kidding. The framework is really simple, but has been really helpful for me. First thing is product, and it has to be an inventive product. I actually don't believe in D2C, like walking down the grocery aisle and just being like, D2C toothpaste and D2C shampoo, but it really has to be inventive. So something like
is this like a scientific invention, or is it
it certainly
interesting
helps.
combination of ingredients?
It could be. So it could be like Halo Top was healthy ice cream. So it's really good tasting ice cream, but for 130 calories. That really was inventive. It wasn't like, we're just going to do D2C ice cream. It was that type of focus and modern brand, but also really inventive product. Matcha bar, one of my favorite investments, is a matcha canned carbonated matcha drink, and they were the first to do a canned carbonated matcha green tea company. ThirdLove, they started with some really cool 3D software. You'd put on a shirt, and then you would record yourself, and then they would have a custom bra built for you. And now they have half sizes and way more sizing than any other company, and that's just, no one had that, no one has that still. And so it needs to be an inventive product. Second is the founders. The team just needs to be really strong.
Is there like a particular combination of people that works really well in D2C? Like, do they have to have come from CPG? Like, what is the combo?
Really just have to have really solid backgrounds of showing that they get a lot of shit done. And they could be
in that category.
No, doesn't have to be.
Okay.
No, the founders of Halo Top were 2 lawyers.
Oh, really?
And they had shown already really good scrappy traction. And so you just get to know the team, and that part you kind of get to know over a few meetings. And sometimes you don't even get to meet the team. Sometimes I haven't even gotten to meet the team, and it's been a really smart friend just saying, hey, this is right up your alley, and the deal is closing right now. It's super rare, but that does happen, where I'll invest even if I can't meet the founders. But with today's online tools, you can see how the track record of people, and chat via Zoom and FaceTime. So the second thing is founders. The third thing, and you rate everything 1 to 5. Third thing is the brand. So with D2C, the brand universe, and the way that I kind of articulate it is, what is the universe that they're building around this product to expand into others, but also to hook consumers into not just a product, but this brand universe. That is one of the most underappreciated, but I think most important assets is, can this team and this product build this really cool universe that people are participating in?
Is it like good ways to test that? Like, can you like look at their social media posts and see how many likes they get? Is it like that kind of things, or how do you get deeper into that?
Definitely, or it's just how you do anything is how you do everything. And so you can look at their website and see, okay, what is the importance placed on the logo, the language, the copy? Do they really know how to build this very cohesive brand and universe, not just kind of this piecemeal kind of shoddy effort, but are they taking a lot of time with every little piece of the equation? And it's something that, I mean, not to make this about Mercury, but you all did this it had this amazing, intense attention paid to each pixel as a bank. And then I feel more comfortable about my money being in the bank because they're going to, how you do everything is, or how you do anything is how you do everything. So, so the brand is very much just the entirety of the product, even when they're just getting going. The fourth thing is growth understanding. They don't have to have traction, but do the founders have a really solid understanding of growth and how to grow products? Someone really smart on maybe Hacker News or Twitter said something a year or two ago that's always stuck with me, which was founder distribution market fit. And so do the founders, it's such a noisy world we live in, so do the founders really understand how to grow a product and not just, maybe 12 years ago or 8, 9 years ago, I remember after Airbnb was valued at $1 billion, everyone was just throwing money at well-designed applications. But really, the Airbnb founders were fanatical about growth, fanatical about getting the awareness out for their product. And the story of the cereal box, they were much more rotated towards fanaticism around growth than they were about just every pixel.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, let's say
space, just to round it out. Fifth thing is space. How big is this space? Okay. So,
like how big's the market, kind of?
Right. How big is?
On like all of these markets are like 100 billion, 200 billion, right?
Yeah.
Like
D2c markets have to be really big because you can't wait 10 years for them to get there. Yeah.
Interesting. It seems like a lot of these D2C ideas get distributed on Facebook, right? And maybe this is my naivety, but what is the actual distribution advantage you have? Like if you have a healthy ice cream, someone else comes along with a healthy ice cream, they buy on Facebook ads, so where's the advantage? Like how do you find a edge in that kind of market?
Yeah, well, zooming out, I think it's also worth saying that I like this space as an angel investor. I love this space as an angel investor because we chat about very few invest in this space. But many of the outcomes, the best ones could be $200, $300 million outcome. And that's an order of magnitude less than what we might look for in a technology business.
Cheaper to make?
Yes, way cheaper. So if you were,
what is the seed valuation?
$3 million, $2 million, $5 million valuation or cap on their.
And this is someone that already has some traction.
Already has some traction. Okay. They're very efficient businesses. Native Deodorant famously got to a $100 million exit with 7 people. Wow. And I've got a portfolio company that is doing similar numbers off of 4 people. And so they're really efficient businesses. And
do you think those DTC brands that do manage to get normal VC valuations, actually doing themselves injustice?
Yes, I think absolutely. I think that's. I think Casper and a handful of other businesses, when you raise too much capital, you back yourself into a corner where IPO is the only outcome. And maybe that makes sense. Maybe you have to do that for the economics. But I think the core advantages that D2C companies have are the extreme efficiency that they can have. You can have, I'll use just a fake company as company X as an example, can get going with a brand agency, building out the site, building out the brand, building out that universe. You have to have the taste to know that you need a brand agency or you do it yourself. You have outsourced manufacturing that are manufacturing your X, your drink, your whatever it is, your deodorant, your ice cream. Outsourced manufacturing, you could actually get to 50 million in sales with 2 people. I've seen that. 50 million in sales with 2 people, that just doesn't happen in the software space.
Is that also a new trend that all of these tools exist to
very new.
With 2 people you can build this?
Yes, it didn't exist. Even 6-7 years ago, it didn't exist. Shopify is insanely powerful. It's just as an exercise, go and set up a Shopify site and you'll see how much more supported they are versus if you and I were all right, I want to build this technology company from scratch. It is that the massive ecosystem that exists for Shopify is outrageous. But then you add in so you have technological advantages that people didn't have 6-7 years ago. You have flexibility advantages as a small startup that Procter & Gamble doesn't have. You have the efficiency that technology startups don't have of 2 people can really take it to 10, 20 million in sales. The outliers could take it to 50 million in sales. That's just outrageous to think about how far they could take it with 2 full-time employees. And then you have this ability to tap into a great network of contractors, freelancers that you pay for, bespoke specific projects rather than keeping them on the payroll. And then I'd say the last advantage is margins. So D2C has the margins to play with on things like Facebook and Instagram. And the ads are getting more expensive. And that's why you really have to focus on building that brand universe that people want to be a part of. And the product, if it's inventive, you just get 5 to 10 more times the outcome on a converted customer if it's inventive and different.
Okay, so let's say I'm a D2c startup. Where do I have to be to get this like $3 million valuation seed round? Like, is it like I can just have an idea and like a good team together, or do I really need to have sold this thing? Like, what is a Kickstarter like the way to do it? Like, is there like a threshold there?
Yeah, I'd say having growth and traction, because one of the key leverage points is that efficiency to get going. And if you can have traction, then that's always great. And it really is more of a trend than a number. You don't need to have a certain amount of sales, but if you can have 20, 30% month over month sales for 4 or 5 months in a row.
What kind of absolute value?
What's that?
What kind of absolute value?
It would need to be in the thousands of sales. But if you can get thousands of sales, maybe tens of thousands of sales, and get to 4 or 5 months of 30% month over month growth, you're showing, okay, this is real traction, and the trend, it's not the number, it's the trend. And showing that trend allows investors to say, like me, to say, okay, this is what the graph is looking like, this is what it could be in 3-4 years. And you can easily do that off of maybe a friends and family round of 30, 40 grand, depending on the product.
I mean, so some ways D2C startups are like harder. As in, like, if you manage to achieve that in a SaaS company, you would get like a 10 million valuation.
Yes, yeah, it doesn't have the upside.
Yeah.
I'd say it's easier because you end up with smaller teams, which is great, and it's not as much of the chicken and egg problem of just software takes so long. You can set up shop and not know for 2 or 3 years if you're building the right thing. With D2C, you can discover that more quickly. But to your point, people can copy you. I think the ceiling is much lower. It doesn't make sense if you're Andreessen Horowitz trying to put an $8 million check into a company, but it makes a lot of sense to the founder that wants to build a different type of company that is maybe not as high stress and a 50-year, 30-year, 20-year treadmill. But it also, and maybe you are okay with, and you're looking for an exit. I'm okay with that as an investor, but yeah, I think it's you have the advantage of getting going much earlier and getting that experience or that feedback from customers really quickly versus software that could take. How long did you work on Mercury before you had your first customer?
Well, we're a particularly extreme example. It was at least 1.5 years before we had our first alpha customer. Yeah. And is Silicon Valley a good place to come to find D2C investors, or is this not?
People can feel free to reach out to me for sure. And on Twitter, James Beshara, feel free to reach out. And I think it is, but I think it is much more on the angel side of things than it is for the institutional side of things.
What's a embarrassing moment while you've been fundraising, like where something silly happened and you were like, couldn't live it down?
There's one where a partner at Index Ventures, and he's no longer there, but he basically walked out of the meeting. Out of 130 pitches, walked out in the middle of it, just said, hey, this isn't for us, good luck, I need to go do some work. I can't remember what the last line, but just I know that he said, this isn't for us, and
like
good
how many
luck.
minutes?
30 minutes in.
Okay.
And as a founder, that's just, and this person was not a founder background. And I think that presents a whole lot of built-in humility if the investor was a founder. But we're 5 years in, I had my executive team with me.
Oh, this was not like
in,
day zero either. This
was
like
the second
Series
meeting.
B or something.
Yeah, a partner had brought us in for a second meeting, and it was a part-time partner bringing us in for a full-time partner meeting, and not only asked so many rude questions, and it was really just hard to get through the pitch, but then 25, 30 minutes in, I couldn't believe it out of the hour allotted, and that was super, super embarrassing.
I've never heard a story like that. That is awful.
Yeah. It's half of me wants to name the person, but the better half of me won't. But that was by far the really embarrassing, stung like hell, and Yeah, I remember being an entrepreneur thinking that those things would happen, but they actually never do. Investors are usually really great humans. That's why they're there to
I mean, they also like live by their reputation.
Right.
These things like don't stay quiet.
Yeah, and he's no longer there. And I know plenty of people at Index that are great, though.
To our last question, what bank would you use if you were doing a startup again?
Wells Fargo, hands down. I love spinning, just getting in the car, driving, finding parking, going and waiting.
Well, you must be that kind of person who loves fees.
I love fees. Yeah. I love just waiting in a line and then getting told I need to go wait in a different line.
Oh, yeah,
and then sitting back just to chat with the same person I chatted with the day before where the wire didn't go through. And it's such a cool social community experience.
At least you're talking to people.
Talking to people, you're getting to know people in the whole community.
You don't have anything else to do as a
exactly.
startup.
It's a great time. You just kill time doing it. So I'm a big Wells Fargo fan after that experience.
All right, James. Thanks for coming here. This has been awesome. I think you've been a great guest in the tea room.
This is so cool.
Have you enjoyed the tea?
And I obviously goes without saying, Mercury is my favorite banking experience I've ever had.
You didn't have to say. We should have left it with the Wells Fargo.
No, business or personal. I do want to say that, but I'll say this tea experience is something else. This is really cool.
Good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.